Hey everybody, my name's Brittany, and I started studying the Bible in April of 2017. When I first started, I knew nothing about it. I never studied it before. It was a lot of information, overwhelming, sometimes even stressful. So I wanted to start a Bible for beginners Bible study. So this week we're going to do Ezra. The book of Ezra begins after Judah, after Judah has been exiled into Babylon for about 50 years. The king of Persia is Cyrus, and he was told by God to let his people return to Jerusalem and build God a temple. So, over 42,000 people returned with a man named Zerubbabel, and to do so. Others gave gifts to take, and they were also given back all of the articles that Nebuchadnezzar had taken from them when they were exiled. They began to build the temple to the Lord and to offer burnt sacrifices. But the older generation who had seen the old temple knew that something wasn't right. They weren't doing it properly. Let's see. Many people tried to get this temple stopped, the building of the temple stopped. And let's jump to chapter 5. It can be very confusing. Verses 1 through 5 are about when people talked Cyrus, remember Cyrus is the king of Persia, Cyrus into stopping the construction of the temple, which he did for 15 to 16 years until a man named Darius came along and became king and found out where Cyrus had declared it to be built and started the construction again. This is all in chapter 5 and 6. This book is very confusing for me too. You see, I'm referring a lot to my notes. Just because I've been studying it doesn't mean I understand it. It's still very confusing at parts for me. A reason that I do these is I'm learning as I go also. I'm learning as I write these study guides to tell you guys. So it can get confusing. It's a lot of different people, a lot of different things. All right, now let's go back to chapter 4, verses 6 through 23. That talks of when people tried to stop the rebuilding of the walls when Artaxerxes was king. We'll get there. Hang on. So it's kind of out of place. Chapter 4, 6 through 23 is out of place if you're doing it timeline-wise. But the temple gets completed under Darius's reign, which is in chapter 6. Before you read chapter 7, go back and read the book of Esther. This is where Esther fits in. Remember Esther? The woman that stopped the king from killing all the Jews because she was Jewish? Esther. So this is where she fits in. If you want to see my video on that, that's week 27. You'll see King Darius is succeeded by Xerxes and then Artaxerxes. During Artaxerxes' reign is when Ezra comes in, chapter 7. Okay, hang on. Okay. He was a descendant of Aaron and a priest of Artaxerxes. Led the second group of people back to Jerusalem. So we had the first group, now the second group's going, along with supplies and treasures. Ezra bought many people, including priests and temple servants. Then he prayed and fasted for a safe journey. They arrived and they realized the group before them had been marrying the wrong people, and in turn, so marrying the wrong people meaning people that worship different gods than they do. Remember how we've had so many issues with that? They'll get intermarried with different religions, and then people will start worshiping other gods and leave God behind. like what was it? Oh gosh, there's been so many examples of that, even kings and such like that. But they decided to exile all the foreign women and their children. And chapter 10 lists all the men guilty of intermarriage. And then if we go back to what I said earlier, chapter 4, verses 6 through 23, is when peoples tried to stop the rebuilding of the walls when this man was king, Artaxerxes. So it's confusing, right? So basically, you remember Judah, God's people, gets exiled into Babylon. The king decides that they can start sending people back to rebuild the temple for the Lord in Jerusalem. And so one group goes over, another group goes over. Second group realizes that the first group is intermarrying with different religions and starting to forget God. That's the basis of it. Very confusing. When you read it, you have to have a study guide with that one almost to figure out the timeline and everything of that. Next week, we'll do Nehemiah, which continues after Ezra. And it is, again, more people going back trying to rebuild this temple. I hope y'all have a great week, and God bless.